to the meeting of the Bennington Select Board. It is 6:03. Apologies for those 3 minutes. In the evening on the 13th of October, we're meeting in the Bennington Fire Facility. I am Jim Sullivan, Vice Chair, acting instead of Tom Haley, our Chair, who was feeling a bit under the weather today and not able to make it to the meeting. And so we will move along as well as I am able. We have a busy agenda, quite a few people here and interested in talking. So I will start by just having our...
Jim, before you start, we just have to come out of executive session.
Oh, see, thank you for the reminder. So the board has been in executive session previously, talking personnel, and so we need a motion to leave executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jackie, second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Clark. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. See no one.
Thank you.
No, so we are out of executive session, and we will call the meeting to order then. Thank you, Dan. And we will begin by just having the board members introduce themselves briefly.
Hi, I'm Nancy White.
Good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hello.
Good evening, Jackie Matz.
Good evening, I am Clark Adams.
I'm Ed Woods.
Okay, and so as we...
And with us?
Oh, well, and with us, yes. Well, our acting town manager, Dan Monks. Let's see, we have Jonah Spivak, who's our communication coordinator, and I think presenting tonight, and Nancy Lively, who is taking minutes. And we will begin the meeting, as always, with the pledge. Clark, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next we will review our vision statement, as we do. And I'm going to do that myself because I happen to have it right in front of me and I didn't warn anybody. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life. Thank you. Yeah, that's okay, huh? The next item on the agenda is particularly important. We're going to have a presentation of a flag that was flown at the State House in honor of Stuart Hurd's service to the community. So I think Senator Bongartz is going to, and oh, we have quite a delegation here.
And, really, this is not just a delegation, so why doesn't the Select Board come up with us, if you can do that?
You can do that.
And any former members of the Select Board here who are here, anybody who worked with Stu, really the whole community. So anybody, all of you come up here and stand with us, because this is really from the community, the larger community. And so for the record, I'm Senator Seth Bongartz. And when Stu passed, we all felt the need to do some tiny show of recognition of love and support for Stu. And so we came up with the notion, because it is a thing we can do if we get it arranged, was to have a Vermont state flag flown at the State House just for the singular purpose of honoring Stu Hurd's work for the town of Bennington and the state of Vermont. And so on behalf of everybody here, and thanks to Jonah and Dan for helping us think through the exact wording and how we wanted to say this. But this flag, so this is a Vermont state flag flown at the State House on September 4th, 2025, in Stu's honor. It has Stu's name on the front, his dates of life on the front, and on the back, it says, "This flag flown at the Vermont State Capitol on September 4, 2025, in honor of Stuart A. Hurd's 52 years of dedicated service to the town of Bennington and the state of Vermont, ending with 32 years as town manager. And so, Justine, we wanted to present this to you. And I think from everybody in this room, the entire community of Bennington, all of us, with love and appreciation for you and for Stu.
Thank you very much. I'm sure he
You're
will be
welcome.
very
Thank
pleased.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
And this is the certificate that goes with it.
Thank you to everyone who came for that moving tribute. I think it's much appreciated and really needed by the community, so thank you. The next thing is our consent agenda. So we have minutes to approve, minutes of September 16 and 22nd, 2025. Have people had an opportunity to review the minutes? Sure, I will speak into the mic. Thank you. The minutes of September 16th and 22nd need to be approved. Does anyone have a motion for the purpose of moving them to discussion?
Jim, I noticed that we might want to
separate
split these.
Oh.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll move to accept the minutes of September 16th.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of September 16th, given, I guess, that not everyone was at all the meeting. So is there a second to the motion for the minutes of September
Second.
16th? There's a second. Discussion? Corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? No? Okay. Okay, the minutes of September 22nd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Jackie Matz, second by Ed Woods. Discussion.
I will be abstaining. I was only able to watch until executive.
Nancy?
Are we talking the regular or the executive session?
Well, so the minutes of the go into and coming executive session meeting at the end. So I would suggest that we could take them together.
Well, from the minutes should reflect, I left the meeting at 8:47.
They're in there, that's in there.
It does say 9:47, but it does reflect that.
I'm sorry?
It says 9:47, so you actually left at 8:47?
No, I
Yes.
think it was.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll correct that to 8:47. That's true. And
If that's the case, my recollection is that that executive session ended shortly after Nancy's departure, so maybe 9:58 and further in the addendum should also be corrected.
Oh, okay, yeah, so, you have to remember, so the meeting ended, we left executive session at 8:58 and adjourned there right after that, is that correct? Anybody disagree with that correction? Okay, so we'll adjust that. With those changes, is there a, can we hear all in favor, and I know there's an abstention, all in favor of approving those minutes?
As amended?
As
Aye.
amended?
Aye.
And opposed and abstaining?
Abstain, Sarah Perrin.
So we have 2 abstentions and 4 aye, so that passes. Thank you. Next is the warrants. Is there a motion to accept the warrants?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion second. Discussion or questions about the warrants? If not, then we'll ask for a vote. All in favor of approving the warrants? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed? No. Okay. We have one license application, second-class license renewal for Haberdasher Wine and Provisions. Do we have a motion regarding for that license? Do we have a motion for that license?
So moved.
Motion from Jackie Metz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Ed, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll take care of those. The next item on the agenda is public comment, and we have a few people who have signed in for public comment. I will take them in order. First is Clark Adams, I believe, to talk about downtown? Donation. Can't
Terrible handwriting.
read. Sorry.
I work with doctors for a long time. Good evening, folks. I want to make it quite clear that what I'm about to say has no bearing on my official capacity and doesn't represent the views or opinion of the town of Bennington. As many of you know that I am a veteran, but a lot of you don't know that I'm the father of two children who were both born in Frankfurt, Germany while I was serving there. Last week, a good friend of mine and I, we visited a place that I consider sacred. I only stumbled across it in some documents. In the main cemetery in Frankfurt, Germany, are the graves of over 400 American babies and children. These were the children of our soldiers who couldn't be brought home. The American military left Frankfurt more than 20 years ago, and since then, some of the local Germans and a local landscaping firm have been caring for these graves at a reduced rate. There is an organization that is maintaining these graves, and I would like to request people of Bennington and America to donate to this group. I will leave the information with Nancy. It'll be included in the minutes, but I can't stress the feeling of sadness to think of our children abroad with no one caring for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark. So, and as we go through the list, I remind everybody that generally try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and we will address any. We will have any questions that you may ask answered. If there's something that we can answer tonight, we'll do that quickly, or if one of the staff can do it. Otherwise, we will certainly get back to you. The next one that I have here is bracketed, just to make it confusing for me. It looks like it's Sam Restino via Jonah and Jonah Spivak regarding fire upcoming event and survey. Yeah.
I'll
Jonah,
clarify
Can you help me on that one, Jonah?
Happy to. So this first public comment is an accommodation for Sam Restino. Members of the public who, because of a disability or injury, can contact the town 3 business days in advance of a meeting to request an accommodation to speak at public comment, and this is an example of that. I have on the phone with me Sam Restino, who will be speaking on those first 2 topics, and I'm putting them on now. Sam?
Yep, I'm on it. Good evening, CAT TV and select board members. I'll speak as fast as I can. This coming Sunday, unbeknownst to you folks, this will be their 5th year. We've got rumbles of motorcycles. Well, we're going to have rumbles of Corvettes. They do this each and every year around fall foliage peak season. This is a Corvette group that comes from southern New Hampshire, and they come into our town, and they meet up at the public house about 1:30. So if you love Corvettes, come on out and give a good watch, rain or shine. And this takes place October 19th, this coming Sunday, around about 1:30. So if you're probably wondering what all these Corvettes are doing in town, probably saw them last year. They like coming back into our town, and they go through the covered bridge as well. So you can probably catch them up as they come through from the covered bridge on Rice Lane and then shoot back down to Public House. As you know, the town of Bennington has had a horrific fire. I don't want to see any more fires. I want to thank wholeheartedly all those involved, from the Bennington Police Department to the fire department to people involved about, there weren't very well any more deaths in that fire or instances as well. I'm asking for our town inspector to have a shakedown to inspect stairway exits as well as fire extinguishers and smoke detectors to be proficient in the coming months for winter so that we don't have any fires like this once again. We need to constantly hit the hammer on this one as well. And I think we just really need to do that. And unbeknownst to me, I know we've got our new formed skate park, Friends of Bennington Skate Park. There's a Halloween event going on that night from 5 to 9. I'm just a little concerned about it because, I don't know if this was approved by our select board members or not, and a lot of people are not aware of, pedestrian traffic around River Street and Depot Street. So that's my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Sam.
Also, I have a public comment on behalf of myself, Jonas Spivak, in my role Communications Coordinator for the town of Bennington. Last Friday, on October 10th, was the opening of the 2025 Community Survey. And I'd very much like to encourage everyone in the area to please take a moment, go to the town website, scroll down till you see quick links, and take part in the survey. The survey is your chance to let us know not just how we're doing, but what kind of things would you like the town to focus on in the future? The survey is something that we rely on to hear what folks are thinking about, and we use it extensively to help guide us in our work. In 2023, the last survey, we had 1,024 people participate in the survey, and that comes out to about 1 out of every 18 people in Bennington took part. That's really incredible, and we would love to see that same number or even more this time around. So I encourage you to please take part in the 2025 Community Survey. Again, it's on the town's website, and we'll also be posting about it regularly on social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonah. I will get right to that myself. Next, we have Bill Clark on downtown.
Hi, my name is Bill Clark, resident of Bennington. I just wanted to reach out to the community and everybody to let you be aware. Back on September 12th, I had resigned from Better Bennington Corporation. It was a sad day for me, but I've got some medical issues going on, so it put me in a spot where I need to look at my health-wise as well. So I just wanted to let the community know I'm no longer doing the downtown or the decorations or anything, and I just felt like I needed to reach out to the community and just say that I'm no longer doing that position. It's due to medical and stuff. It's sad, but at the same time, I got to take care of myself. I just felt like I needed to reach out to the community and just let people be aware I'm no longer on the street. So thank you, and appreciated the town having me as long as I was there for 9 years, and just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, I want to say thank you. Yeah, you certainly will be missed, Bill. You've been a stalwart for the downtown. Thank you, and wish you well. Next, we have Debbie Matt at the Senior Center.
Debbie Matt, Bennington. I don't know if everyone is aware, in February, the Y was put in control of the senior center. And now the Y wants to close the senior center at noon every day instead of staying open till 4 o'clock, as we've been doing. I personally believe that it's a conflict of interest having the senior center under the Y. Their goal is to get more people lined up to join the Y, which I understand from their point of view. But we, the senior center, need someone that is looking out for the seniors' well-being, having activities more in line with the seniors' interests. Myself and others have talked to the town, which was, Wednesday, with Dan, Jonah, and Shannon. But there is still a big lack of communication. I came before the board a while ago asking for information on financial accounts connected to the center with no answer. Stuart did tell me that there were 3 different accounts connected to the senior center. I asked again in a recent meeting and was told I didn't need to worry about it. Myself and others are very concerned that the center will no longer exist. So any help in supporting us would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kate Cost on CPARB announcements.
Good evening, Kate Cost, Bennington. This is a reminder that CPARB's meeting on Thursday, October 23rd, will start at 4 p.m. instead of the regular time of 6 p.m. And we have a special presentation on Act 56 by Director Christopher Backel from the Vermont Police Academy. Please recall that Act 56 concerns the professional regulation of law enforcement and oversight by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council and has been in effect since July 1st, 2018. I also want to announce our second Public Safety Education Forum on Thursday, November 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the multipurpose room in the firehouse, so this room. This forum brings together members of the legislature and public and nonprofit professionals, including Ralph Bennett, Director of Housing and Corrections at Turning Point, Fred Bragdon, Bennington Public Defender, Letha Cipriano, Executive Director of the Center for Restorative Justice, Gina Kondo, District Manager, Probation and Parole within the Department of Corrections, Robert Plunkett, Vermont State Senator and member of the Legislative Oversight Committee, and Dr. Alia Reeve, who is the Medical Director and Chief Medical Officer for United Counseling Services. Panelists are going to focus on current sentencing practices and the opportunities and challenges they present. First, to ensure successful completion of court orders, and second, to address community concerns in ensuring safety and crime prevention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And next is Mike Lemieux regarding the skate park.
Good evening. My name is Mike Lemire, a lifelong resident of Bennington.
His microphone.
I'm really glad for the skate park, but I see some major concerns. And the major concern is there's an awful lot of people over there with no helmets. And right on the sign, it says, helmets required. I wish the town of Bennington had started this on day one to enforce this. How to enforce it, I don't know, but there's no way that I would let my children or my grandkids over to the skate park without a helmet on. And I just came by there, on my way here. There's at least 10 people over there on bicycles and skateboards that somebody's going to get hurt. My second thing is, I would like to see, on Main Street especially, more benches put up for the tourists that travel in here. Not everybody wants, they'll say to their wife or whoever, you go on in the store, I'm going to sit down. I know I'm guilty of it when we go out of town. I would like to see that. And third thing, I'm all for, like, Harvest Fest. I went last year, or Hemmings Motor News Cruise-ins. There's nowhere near enough restroom facilities for the amount of people that attend these things. Hemmings Car Show, there is not a single one. And last year at Harvest Fest, there was 2 of them behind TD Bank. And that's my suggestions to make Bennington better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Mike Bethel to discuss stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a couple of things. One is, I want to thank the board for last meeting. You folks generously donated $2,000 to the St. Francis, I can't even remember, St. Francis Assisi's cat rescue. And they greatly appreciate it. I've talked to them. They've called me. I'm going to try to do more with them. They've taken Nancy's suggestion that they're going to go out to different organizations and see if they can drum up more money. It is a very good cause for not only this community, but other communities. I've heard from other people that they have problems too, and I've got enough cats, I can't take it anymore. But I really want to thank you for that. And then the other thing I want to talk about is what Debbie Madison said, or whatever her name is, I don't even know her. But let's clear up the senior center thing. Put who's ever running that on the agenda and bring them down in their own words and tell what it is that the seniors are or aren't doing and going to do. Because, not that I'm a senior yet, or I actually am, but I don't consider myself one. You know, you'd like to know if there's something available for you, when it is available, what it's going to do. And a lot of those people over there do count on those activities every day, every week. So let's clear it up, get the people who are now running it. And does anybody on this board know who's actually running it? Is it the Y or is it who? I mean, I'd like to know if you guys could answer it. So let's clear that up. And then you're going to have something about the town manager in a little while? Is that an open discussion?
That will be an action item by the select board.
That's on the agenda, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
people can talk about that, correct?
It'll be an action item by the select board, Mike.
Oh, okay. So it's can be talked about to support him or
The
not?
select board will be talking about it and taking action. Go ahead.
Well, I support him.
Thank you.
So please give it to him. You know, stop wasting time. He's getting older by the minute. His hair's getting grayer and his beard's getting longer, and it's time to put him in place. And we got a lot to do in this town. You guys got a lot to do in a few months. A lot to do. And unfortunately, Stu, you know, is gone and very untimely, and we all miss him. But you guys got a lot to do with the budget and everything else. So please don't waste any more time on that and clear up the senior center question, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we have Jeannie Jenkins, Story Night.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Jenkins, Bennington. I just wanted to share something that I'm excited about. Story Night is coming back, and if you didn't experience it in the past, it is a night where locals come and tell stories, true stories. So this one will be this Thursday, October 16th. The doors open at 7 at Pangea Cafe, and the theme is Bloom. And there's room for 8 people to come and tell stories, true stories, without props or notes that relate to bloom. And that could be all things old, becoming new again. Bring your stories that come to mind when you think of all that you have or have not bloomed. So it's a lovely chance. I love being an audience. I am not a storyteller, but I love being in the audience and hearing stories from our neighbors and community members, just about their lives and something they want to share. So this Thursday, doors open at 7, Pangea Cafe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ken Millman, Riverwalk.
Ken Millman, resident of Bennington. Inviting everybody in the community to come to the Riverwalk on Saturday at 9 a.m. We start at the skate park. We will end up at the Elk Lodge. This month we are honoring Jim Cone, who for 4 decades has been spearheading Thanksgiving dinners, and they do 1,600 meals a year. And if he was unsung, he is unsung no more. So please come celebrate Jim Cone.
Thank you very much, Ken. Definitely worthy. And next, we have Bridget Elder, who's doing Mike Bethel One Better. She'll be talking about various.
It's actually about the skate park also. It's such a pleasure to see so many kids there and doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is skating. I mean, they're using it, and people are coming from other places to use it too. But people are very courteous, friendly. I just walked by there, but I would say it would be nice if there were a bench or two there so we could see people skateboarding. It's really fun. And then one of the kids was asking if there was a water fountain because it was really hot. But that's just food for a drink for thought later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Dan, could you address, I know that the town has been doing some things or planning some things regarding the skate park, especially around some of the safety issues?
Sure. I'll get this on. So, yeah, we do want to encourage folks to wear helmets, and I know that Shannon Barsadi is working to raise some funds to purchase some helmets so we can do some helmet giveaways. We've been coordinating with the Bike Hub with that effort. I also know that some folks were able to successfully get some significant amount of gift certificates from Stewart's when there will be time.
Excuse me, could we just have no conversation in the audience? We can actually hear pretty well up here. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. And we'll be handing out gift certificates to folks who actually are wearing helmets. So kind of a two-pronged approach. We do want to work with the Bike Hub to get more education regarding that effort. And I agree that helmets should be worn. It's very difficult to enforce, and I'm certainly not going to deploy the police department to enforce helmet wearing at the skate park unless the select board directs me to. So as far as the benches, it's a great idea. We are looking into more furniture at the skate park in the springtime. Been working with Mark Sawyer talking about that, and we'll make sure that we do some additional amenities in the springtime for folks to enjoy that park. And one of the great things about that park is it has resulted in some additional donations. Daily Precast has announced that they will be donating a bathroom facility building. So we're working with them to figure out what design that should be, and fundraising. We'll have to do some fundraising for the fixtures, et cetera, because that would just be the building. It wouldn't be all the plumbing and electrical, et cetera. So, but that's a great start for a permanent bathroom facility there. There is a porta potty there now, but I think a bathroom facility with some storage and maybe even some water ability for folks to get some water to fill bottles, et cetera, would be a good idea. So we are looking into that, and we do plan to continue that effort. I do want to address the senior center. I don't want to say too much because we're still talking with the Y and talking with Deb and talking with lots of different folks. But we have been in discussions with the Y about how best to manage that facility. It is virtually empty from about 1 o'clock on, and it has been for decades. So we just want to make sure that we're expending our resources in a thoughtful and careful manner. The senior programs over at the sports center many of them have wait lists. So we just want to figure out how we manage that and make sure we serve our seniors to the best of our ability with the limited taxpayer funds that we have. I will say there was a statement about not making sure that we're not closing the senior center. I can guarantee you, by spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a new senior center in the Ben High, we will not be closing a senior center. That is part of the programming there. And we will continue to run programs and enhance them. And that Ben High facility will give us much more space and much more ability to enhance programming. I think it's a great idea to bring the YMCA folks in yet again to talk about their programming. You know, they've been in here several times before to talk about their senior programming, but it certainly makes sense to do an update where we are now, and we can certainly ask the YMCA to do that. And just to be absolutely 100% clear, the YMCA does manage the senior center under a performance contract, service contract with the town. So there's absolutely no secrecy about that. That is 100% clear. And I know that at least the town staff has been very satisfied with the results, and we continue to support their efforts and want to make sure that we serve as many seniors as we can.
Thank you, Dan. The next item on the agenda deals with the town manager position. The select board has had extensive discussions about that position in executive session, and has met with a number of people, and has gotten to the point where I think that we are able to entertain a motion to appoint Daniel Monks as town manager pending approval of an employment agreement. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion by the board?
Yes, I'd like to read a comment I've prepared. Very short. I just want to add, I've given this a lot of thought since we've had so many discussions. As we all know, we've met quite a few times. Many residents have reached out to us and myself, and the vast majority of people that I've spoken with were in favor of appointing Dan to this position, which I feel reflects a strong sense of trust in his leadership and the direction of which the town is heading. I believe taking action tonight ensures this role and stability of continued progress for our town.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other statements from Board Member Clark?
Good evening. I also have heard from a good number of people in town. One point I want to be quite clear about is in the past I have leaned toward the idea of a national/regional search, but that was predicated on the idea we'd have time to conduct it. Unfortunately, we weren't given the luxury of time with the passing of Mr. Hurd. So far, all I've heard, all emails I've received have been positive toward the appointment of Mr. Monks. It's been communicated to me that the critical members of town department are 100% behind the idea of Mr. Monks being appointed. And I can say at this point, I also am 100% behind the idea of Mr. Monks being appointed, and I can think of no good reason to delay moving forward with this appointment.
Jackie, I think, and then Ed.
Thank you. I do want to start by saying that I fully support the appointment of Mr. Monks as our next town manager, pending an acceptable employment agreement. I believe he's demonstrated the skill, professionalism, and commitment needed to lead Bennington effectively. I'm confident he'll serve the town well. That said, I do want to acknowledge some concerns about how this process has appeared to the public. While I think the board has been thorough and deliberate in our internal discussions, I'm aware that many residents haven't had a clear sense of where we were in the process. At our last meeting, our chair read a brief statement that left some with the impression that we were still in the early stages of deliberation. So for some, tonight's actions may feel like they're coming a little out of nowhere. I understand this is a personnel matter. Legally speaking, the safest course of action is to say as little as possible. But I also believe that as public servants, our duty goes beyond avoiding risk. It's our responsibility to communicate clearly, to invite public input, and to build trust through transparency, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. I'm hopeful we can learn from this experience and improve how we communicate about important decisions like this in the future. The public deserves not just good outcomes, but confidence in the process that we've taken to reach them.
Thank you. Ed?
I'll also be real brief. I wanted to mention that when I joined this board almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I learned that there was a succession plan in place. And that succession plan through the last board or last year or two that was here had the luxury, I guess, of seeing it. And there really was a strong succession plan. I mean, Stuart Hurd told us that we were staffing the right way if this was the direction that we were going to go in. And so I just sort of wanted to mention that we didn't do this without input from the source. And I feel really good about supporting this role for Dan. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Anyone else? No, then I would call the vote on the motion that is before us. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so 5 in favor, 1 abstention. That motion carries. And there was a consensus statement prepared by the Select Board that I would like to read at this time regarding the position and the appointment. The Select Board has decided to move Daniel Monks from his current position as acting town manager to the permanent town manager position. Prior to his medical leave, former town manager Stuart Hurd stated that Dan had learned the job of town manager while serving as the assistant town manager for the past 10-plus years and was ready to take on the responsibility of being the next town manager. Dan has proven that Stu was correct by stepping up during a particularly challenging time over the past several months and ensuring that the town government has continued to run efficiently and without any interruption of services. Dan has a thorough knowledge of the operations of the municipal government, possesses the full range of skills needed for the job, and is absolutely dedicated to serving Bennington. He also has earned the respect of the town staff, and his working relationships with them and with others in the community and in Montpelier will ensure efficient delivery of services going forward. The board considered the merits of conducting a search for a new town manager, but determined that the inevitable disruption in governmental operations would be problematic, and that it was unlikely that a candidate could be located who would, with certainty, provide the level of professional management achieved by moving Dan into the town manager position. Thank you. So with that, we will begin working on that employment agreement that will have to be subsequently approved by the full board and accepted by Mr. Monks. So thank you for that.
Jim, do you mind if I just make a few really quick comments?
Well, it's all about you, so I guess you might as well.
I'm not really prepared, but I did jot down a few things. And first of all, I know that we have lots of things to talk about as we discuss next steps in the future of Bennington, but for tonight, I just want to say I'm humbled by your actions. I know I have huge shoes to fill, and I want to thank the Select Board for granting me this opportunity to continue to serve my hometown, Bennington, in this new capacity. So thank you very much. I also want to thank the staff for their support during this difficult and challenging time for all of us, personally and professionally. I continue to be impressed by their commitment to the town of Bennington and their resilience in the face of challenges. I want to thank the residents of Bennington who have had the pleasure of serving for 27 years. And I want to give a special thank you to those residents who reached out to me personally and expressed their good wishes and support over the past few months as the staff, community, and I have dealt with the loss of Stuart. And finally, I want to give a special thank you to my boss, my mentor, my friend, Stuart Hurd. Because of his lifetime of service, he left the world in a better place than he found it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and yes, thank you, Stuart. So the next item on the agenda is a presentation on issue of vacant properties in town by Jonah Spivak and Paul Densrow.
Well, that's a tough thing to come right after. I'm Jonas Spivak, I'm the coordinator for the town of Bennington. And I'm here with Paul Dansrow, who wears many hats, but tonight is wearing his building inspector and fire marshal hat. We've been asked to talk to you today about vacant properties. This might sound familiar to some of you, as the issue of vacant properties was explored by the Charter Review Committee as part of their work. In the end, they did not recommend a charter change, but did suggest that a review of town ordinances could be useful for addressing vacant buildings. The issue arose again more recently, inspired by an article in the Brattleboro Reformer and the Bennington Banner about a new fee structure for vacant building permits, which generated a lot of interest. As a result, the staff have put together this presentation for you tonight. In our presentation, we'll start by talking about the negative effects of vacant properties, categorize them for you, discuss some of the possible reasons properties become or stay vacant, and finally, a brief overview of what tools we have currently at our disposal to address them. At the end, we'll discuss what we might be able to do about it. It's a complex problem. Vacant properties can be an eyesore and a health and safety risk. That's obvious. What is less obvious is that some properties can be vacant for years and be a drag on the economic activity in our town. Indeed, some vacant properties are not obvious that they are vacant at all. However, the impact on the grand list is obvious in a negative way. By the way, there are at least 9 vacant residences and 21 vacant commercial properties that we know about.
As we looked into this complex issue, came across some broad categories of what we classify for vacant properties. One, which is pretty obvious, would be a downtown district commercial space or building. It's also important to note a building itself might have a second or third floor that's occupied, used, but a street level floor may be vacant. So that'd be a vacant space that we'd look at. Next one would be the commercial buildings or spaces which are located outside of our downtown districts. Another broad category is residential dwellings or houses that may be in foreclosure. And the fourth thing up there is really a key point. It's not necessarily a separate category, but it could apply to all of the 3 previous categories. And that is if there's a property or space that has no viable owner, which will come into play later on as we talk different issues. Not you.
There are a number of reasons why a vacant property can linger. It can be financial. For example, you can offset income on an income-producing property with losses from a non-productive property. This is probably the case in a number of our vacant commercial properties. Needless to say, if there is no owner, that is a problem and a reason in and of itself. Market conditions also play a role, as do the natural swings of supply and demand. Sometimes it's former locations of existing chains. And this is an interesting situation. As these properties are generally well maintained, the taxes are paid, there's no violations, but empty for very long times. Examples of this are the former Friendly's restaurant, the old Cumberland Farms, and the Burger King location.
So currently there's several tools that we may have at our disposal as a staff to try to address different vacant properties and different types. First thing right now is the Town of Bennington, Article 30 of the Vacant Property Ordinance. Within the ordinance, vacant properties are required to register with the Town of Bennington and have a local property manager that is located within 40 miles of Bennington. And that is in the event if there's an emergency or situation at the properties, someone could get there that you'll have keys, et cetera, take care of it. Currently, there's no fee structure in place to register with vacant property. But a key point also applies to that single family vacant properties is the Article 30 has very limited powers or authorities to address vacant properties that are single-family owner type properties and not public or commercial space. And another factor within the Article 30 is similar to all our other building or zoning type enforcement actions. At the end of the day, if voluntary compliance is not reached, it takes a court order and court action to authorize the town to either take actions or assign penalties, fees, and fines to an owner. The next tool is Town of Bennington Article 6, which is our housing, building, life safety ordinance. This is the preferred tool if there's a vacant property that has become that public nuisance, unsafe structure, or has known building fire or life safety hazards. Again, the enforcement procedure, though, would be similar. Would be if voluntary compliance is not reached, a notice of violation is issued to the property owner. And if that still no compliance is not reached after the notice of violation is issued, a complaint filed within the courts and await a court action. The third one, Town of Bennington Land Use and Development Regulation, that's our zoning. So if there's zoning violations that apply to a vacant property, that tool could be used. So the first, three tools I discussed are more of the reactionary and punitive type approaches if property is not in compliance. The fourth tool there is town loans, is more of an incentive to encourage new businesses to occupy some of those vacant spaces and become viable producers in the community. Yeah, technology, sorry. Thanks. It's also important, you kind of alluded to some of this with what are the limitations though within the tools that we have in place. As Jonah stated, if a public or commercial building is being maintained, is not creating a public hazard, it's not creating a public nuisance, not fire or life safety issue, it's maintaining compliance with the Article 30, then technically it's not in violation, and those tools would not be able to be used to try to get any, or there would not be any violations that would need to be corrected, through using those tools. The other one is and Jonah stated, a viable owner. If there's no one that can be held accountable for the properties, particularly a financial liability at the end of the day, it is very difficult to continue on with enforcement actions and proceed. And when we talk about some of the, those enforcement processes, from start to finish of when a notice of violation is issued to a complaint being filed to finally having a date in court. Some of our recent enforcements for building and zoning violations have been 12 to 18 months time frame before we finally get into a court date before a judge. And then at that point, there's still not necessarily any guarantees of what a judge's award might be as far as any of the fines, penalties, or fees. The maximum may be requested, but that's just the maximum that might be assigned is not necessarily guaranteed that that's what the court would award in a case. Okay.
As we reviewed the codes and thought about the scope and nature of our vacant properties, a few considerations did emerge that we wanted to share with you. Namely, we need to be careful about the scope of whatever solutions we come up with. If changes are made, we have to be able to roll it out in a fair way so that any enforcement does not end up seeming arbitrary. And what about situations where property owners are trying to do the right thing, but is simply unable to find a tenant? We might unintentionally hurt someone who is trying their best. And finally, whatever we do has to be fair and applied equally across all owners. We can't take a broad solution and only apply it to a few. At the start of the presentation, we mentioned the article in the Brattleboro Reformer and the Bennington Banner, and it's worth coming back to that. The idea of being able to use an ordinance to fix and revitalize downtown is exciting. And perhaps that was some of the incentive at work. Actually, Paul, you spoke with their zoning person. How did that go?
Yes. As part of the staff research into this, was able to speak with their planning and zoning office in Brattleboro approximately 3 weeks ago. What generated their changes to their vacant property was notably two commercial properties that they had within Brattleboro. By the time the ordinance was adopted, though, both of those properties became into compliance and were no longer an issue. So a key factor is, at this point, or excuse me, at least as of that conversation, there hadn't been a case where their vacant permit fee structure was actually collected on, or a challenged, or an enforcement to uphold it. So it's still kind of unknown what effects that might have within their structure.
Are we trying to fix nuisance properties? Are we wanting to do economic development? Something else? Depending on that answer, we can do a number of things, but understanding exactly what problem we're hoping to solve is vital, and that feedback from you is what we need from the Select Board at this point. A clear answer can guide us on what categories or locations we should focus on. We can update Article 30. We can and develop and propose a fee structure for a vacant property registry. We can use some carrots, like identifying existing economic development tools like the revolving loan fund, or adding new incentives. And finally, we should work with our partners, such as the BBC, and see if there are creative ways to address specific properties. And with that, we turn to you for your thoughts and questions.
Thank you, Jonah and Paul. So at this time, should we do we ordinarily take comments from the public or the board? It's not an action item.
I believe it's public first.
Public first, usually on those, right? So yeah. So so are there any comments from the public? Just raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, come to the microphone and state your name and your town.
Kathy Chianowski, and I'm from Bennington, and I've often traveled Benmont Avenue, and I always look at the old photo shop building that was burnt, I don't know, 5 years ago, and I always wonder, well, why is that still sitting there? Does anybody own it? Isn't that a public nuisance? What is the story on that building?
I can address some of the facts with that one. As of 2014, there is no longer a viable owner for that structure. It's still technically the owner of record is CTC Corporation. There's also concerns on environmental hazards that might be on that property. To alleviate those environmental hazards, the town of Bennington had tried to request through the state to basically get exemptions for being environmentally responsible for that property if the town of Bennington took action. I know Stuart directly was working that, and Dan was part of some of those conversations, or excuse me, some of that outreach to the state representatives. Unfortunately, within the state program, there was not an answer that would grant us liability protection from any environmental hazards if the town took direct action. And the third part is, frankly, still a large cost that the town would incur, besides potentially environmental responsibility for that property for the duration, that correct, Dan? Yeah. There would also be the cost of removing that building structure, anything else, and then at the end of the day, there would be a large debt incurred by the town and would not be able to recoup the fraction of what the cost would be. So those are the complication factors that are part of it, why that structure has been dealt with sooner than now. Dan, I don't know if you have any other comments you might have, Dan.
Sure, I'll just kind of echo one comment in particular is the virtually unlimited environmental liability to the taxpayers of this town if we were to even attempt to remediate that property. And we have not been able to find a cost-effective solution that the state will accept to limit that liability. And without a viable owner, we don't have anybody to place those burdens on, those financial burdens on, and I, for one, don't feel comfortable placing those burdens on the taxpayers of Bennington at this time, especially unless we can work out something with the state with regard to environmental protection, which to date, we really haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, Jeannie, go ahead.
Hi, Jeannie Jenkins, Bennington. Two thoughts. One, I wanted I think we're both looking at economic development and getting rid of eyesores, depending on what the issue is. And I do think that the tax liability or tax advantage piece of it is something that we do want to, I guess, make sure does not become the driving force, and I think it may be for those buildings that have been vacant, those commercial buildings that have been vacant for a long time. And just talking with people who have tried to rent those buildings, either you cannot change anything on the inside of those buildings, or the lease periods are extremely long, like a 3-year minimum, or you don't get callbacks from the individual that is responsible for that property. So I do think that it's important for us. I do think you're asking the right question. What is the problem we're trying to solve? I'm also wondering, my understanding was that Brattleboro got much of their information from Montpelier, which also has an ordinance with some teeth in it. And I don't know anything beyond just having heard that, so I don't know if it's true or not.
When I spoke with them, Rutland City and Montpelier were 2 models that they had looked at. Again, though, without a case study of if they had to carry forward on enforcement, it's just how effective it goes to at that point. So I'm not.
So Montpelier has not had to enforce theirs?
I'm not sure on Montpelier, so I'll have to look at that a little more.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it might be useful because I think it's been enforced for a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Oh, Mike.
My voice travels. I think you guys are on the right path. I'm more interested in what we talked about a little while ago, the economic part of these vacant buildings. Like, I'll use the Hart property for an example. The Merchants Bank, we all know that's been vacant for close to 15, 20 years. I'd love to see if there's something you can do through either legal or look into from Montpelier, what we could do to encourage owners of those type properties to start waking up. If they're getting an advantage from keeping it vacant, is there something Montpelier can do bigger than us as a town to do to push that? And I'm sure that isn't the same. That may be the same in other areas of Vermont, but that block is a big part of downtown. And if there was more stores there, it would maybe encourage more people to come to downtown and shop and visit and spend the day. And also the Putnam block, I mean, you guys all know Bill Colvin, but you could get him to start doing something. That's 25%. It's almost a quarter of what's left of property that if he could get that moving, put something in there, attraction, something. We need a draw for downtown Bennington, and I think you guys are smart enough to come up with something. But I applaud you, too, for what you're trying to do, I really do.
Thanks, Mike. So I think we can turn to comments or questions from the board if there's nothing else from the public. And I wanted to start out with a question. I have a few, I think. But I totally understand the conundrum of not having a viable owner to go to, and the question of environmental liability and the town being responsible for that if you start disturbing the site. But I've gone by a number of vacant, abandoned residential properties that may or may not have a viable owner, and they sit there for a long time. And there's a real serious public health and safety issue there with people that may wander into those buildings. They're kind of attractive, I think, for kids to go and explore, or people experiencing homelessness or whatever. And there's no doubt filled with hazards and potential problems there. And regardless who's ultimately responsible, that public health and safety risk is real. And what can we do about that?
So start point on it would be, I'll use an example, 118 Imperial. 118 Imperial, which I know different board members and former board members had contacted myself. Started trying to do an enforcement on that since my hire, which was in 2020. That property, basically the owner of record, and still owner of record on the deed, and still owner of record in grand list, is a person that has not resided there in at least the last 7 to 8 years. Water's been turned off, electricity is turned off. There's a property management company that does the minimum to at least keep the building secured. The owner of record is a federal entity that has the mortgage for the, excuse me, not the owner of record. The mortgage holder for the property is a federal entity that has that, but the mortgage company has not put the deed in their name through the time period. And that's one of the perpetual issues that, those type of situations where you have a foreclosure that drags on, where the mortgage holders do not transfer the deed to their name, makes it very difficult, because as we do an enforcement action, and then in that particular case, we did use Article 30. That particular case, we did get a court judgment. In that particular case, there is a $15 a day fine being assessed on that property. The next steps would be, Town of Bennington to actually try to foreclose on it. And I think Dan could talk the point a little bit better if I get this facts wrong, but the way it's structured, if the senior lien holder could wipe out the debt that we would have incur on it. But we want to take that step to at least try to use as a forcing function to at least put it in an owner's name. So that's a technique that we are trying to use, Jim, on those different properties. When there is, and the third point, of course, is if taxes, are being paid in that particular case, the taxes are paid each year, so it's not falling into default. So that was the one example. There's a couple others like that through town, but those are different tools. And Dan, I don't know if you maybe just talk that other point in.
Sure. So that kind of speaks to the charter change that the Charter Committee requested that the state approve, which is that municipal liens could have seniority over bank liens, much like water, sewer, and tax liens. As it stands now, Paul's correct. If a mortgage holder forecloses on the property, regardless of how many liens the town has for enforcement actions, those liens get wiped out and we would recover nothing. So there's a lot of taxpayer money spent on court action and perhaps a cleanup that we would never recover. Now, we still oftentimes do the math and decide that, even if we're not going to recover this money, we still have to do it for public health and safety reasons. I will say that the concern about folks getting into vacant buildings, I know that Paul and Bridget are pretty diligent about making sure that these buildings are not open for trespass. I would dare say there's very few that are. That's one thing we are able to do pretty effectively. But as far as removing the blight, getting the property redeveloped, trying to push these banks to move forward with foreclosures, we have not had success, not great success anyways, and it is a real problem for those single families, especially where those mortgage holders hold off for years. It's a game they play because as soon as they put the deed in their name, then the liens do attach, and they can't foreclose those liens. They can't close out the responsibility for those liens, but as long as it remains in the former property owner's name, those liens are at risk and will likely be wiped out when the mortgage holder finally does decide to proceed. I'm assuming it's a calculation they do about writing off debt on their books, and they do it over time very slowly. So, but I can't speak to that for sure, but we think that's probably what's going on with those single family properties. But one of the many challenges that we continue to face.
Other comments, questions from the board? I'll start on this end. Nancy, do you have anything? Sarah?
Yeah. So it seems like there's a couple properties, at least one or two that I'm aware of, that one's close to me that looks like it's bought up in a portfolio. And to me, this seems super frustrating. I don't know how this is something that you can even fathom working with. So thank you for taking this up. But how do you go about working with a property like that?
Which one? Sorry.
The Friendlies?
Oh, the Friendlies. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I didn't want to name it in case.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah.
So the old Friendlies structure, might have been 2 years ago, we initially had issues where they weren't taking care of the outside vegetation, keeping it mowed, keeping it. The property managers, after notice of violations were issued, they brought that into compliance. brought that forward. And again, that's just, it's that property right now, yes, it's staying vacant. It's not getting any better as far as the building structure. You know, the longer it stays vacant, the less useful it becomes. But at the same time, if they're maintaining the bare minimums to keep it within the ordinance, we don't have violations that we can pursue on. I know on a different angle, I know Shannon had been trying, different groups had some interest in the building, trying to get, you know, that was maybe 2 years ago. Sorry, my memory gets cloudy here with COVID sometimes, it all blends. But unfortunately that fell through, so don't have a good answer for you, Sarah, other than we can at least ensure that they're maintaining the minimum standards for what the ordinances have in place.
And just follow up. Do you know about how many other properties similar to that are in portfolios that are very difficult to deal with?
We mentioned the 3 offhand that are readily obvious, but I'm sure there are more. But there's at least 20 commercial buildings, but it's those ones that you correctly identified that are well-maintained and that have no violations. They're the toughest. So that's part of the reason we need ultimately feedback from the select board is where do we put our efforts? Is it those buildings or is it the ones that are the obvious blights? That's a good question.
Thanks.
Continuing down the, Jackie, do you have anything?
Sure. Thank you. Really great overview. I obviously was part of the charter review committee that looked at this a little more in depth, but thank you for continuing to focus on this. And I agree with some residents here today that said I think it is a bit of both of the situations. It's an economic development concern. It's a concern just for the appearance of the town. I think those are not mutually exclusive either. I think about some of the vacant properties downtown, and if I were to want to open up a business, I wouldn't want to be surrounded by vacant properties, right? I wonder about, you mentioned the ordinance in Brattleboro and that the 2 vacant properties that they had sort of scoped out for this ordinance became occupied in the interim of them passing this ordinance. Is there any reason to believe that they became occupied in anticipation of this ordinance?
I'm not 100% positive they became occupied, Jackie.
Oh, okay.
What was stated to me is they came in within compliance, were no longer the public or safety issue or something that they were concerned with.
Okay.
But I could look into more detail on it.
I could just add, one of the things that the ordinance asked for is that they be actively promoting it. So if they could prove that they're actively marketing the property, that could bring them into compliance and still have it remain vacant.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think with so many of these sorts of topics that raises as many questions as it answers. What does it mean to be actively marketing that property? Right. Is a sign in the window that's folded over that you can't read sufficient, that, you know, with the phone number that never gets answered? Or,
definitely agree with you on that, Jackie. And as an outsider reading their ordinance, but knowing how enforcement's and proceeding with enforcements in courts, that was the questions I had is, okay, how you define what that really means. Mm-hmm. That'd be stuff that we would have to look at in anything that we would want to put in place.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, and I don't know that I have a really pointed question here, but you mentioned about recouping costs on some of these properties. It seems obvious to me, maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems obvious to me that there is a cost that's challenging to quantify or to measure in terms of the impact to the overall local economy. Is there like a certain point, and I think I've heard you mention this tonight, that there's a certain amount of loss that's sometimes considered acceptable for rehabilitating or getting a property occupied?
So I won't necessarily speak for Dan, but Senator made the point, but my take on it would be, in our office, we always look at what is the hazard. Mm-hmm. And you assign different levels of hazard or different levels of what the violations are. And sometimes, if it's a great enough risk, poses enough risk, then yes, there might be the cost incurred, but you might be a negative excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
The action we'd have to take, might mean something that we would not recoup all the
Sure.
monies that would be involved. But that's a really a factor, at least within our office, as we look at, how we proceed on enforcement, what tools, what actions to take. That's a conversation that we're always having. And Dan, I don't know if you have
And I know, Jackie, you know this, so I know I'm telling you something you already know, but not everybody does. So enforcement actions there are three things. They take a lot of time, they take a lot of effort, and they cost a lot of money. And we rarely recover anything more than our attorney's fees, which doesn't take into account staff time. It doesn't take into account any fines or other penalties. And it takes, as Paul mentioned, at least a year, if not 18 months, to even just get to that point where we might actually recoup our attorney's fees, never mind the other costs that we incur. So it's a real, I think it's a very important issue, but I think we have to be prepared if we are going to tackle this head on, that it's going to cost money up front, and we will probably not get it back, at least not, at least not in the short term. And that's not to say we shouldn't do it, because good things can cost money, but we have struggled over the years because it continually costs us more and more money, and it takes more and more time and more effort to, as the court systems get bogged down, to have positive results. It doesn't stop us from enforcing. We don't say, oh, we're not going to do this because it costs money. It's just, I think we need to know that there's that impact, and we have limited staff resources, limited financial resources, so we have to be very careful about which problem areas we focus on and which properties we put all of our effort in. So I wish I could say that we could address every single property that has a violation, but it's impossible.
No, I understood. I think what I'm hearing, too, correct me, is that the impetus for acting often is on the side of health hazards or environmental risks, and is less weighted towards economic concerns. Is that?
Definitely within our office, Jackie, of course, planning and zoning, because that is our main focus areas. Not to say, though, that Shannon and other departments are focusing on the carrot approach.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Clark?
Thanks. So, Paul, and maybe even Dan, I heard you mention folks maintaining vacant property and using those on the balance sheet as write-offs for the value of that property. Again, in my non-lawyer, non-business kind of mind, I'm thinking, can we as a town devalue that property? If you've got this vacant building not being used, why is it being assessed or given the same tax value as property that's generating income and having utilization? Is there some reason we can't give them less valuation on it so their tax incentive is less?
So actually, Clark, that would make it even more attractive to them because they'd have to pay less taxes. It's not based, their incentive is not based on the value of the property, it's based on the income that they're not generating from that property. We could certainly bring an accountant in here to talk about the incentive, but actually what a lot of towns, a lot of states, because we can't do it in Vermont because the state of Vermont does not allow this, a lot of towns have, or a lot of states have started to think about assessing properties based on square footage as opposed to fair market value or quality, so that if you have a vacant building of, say, 1,000 square feet, you're paying the exact same taxes as somebody who takes care of their building and has 1,000 square feet. That's not possible in the state of Vermont. We have to base all of our assessments on fair market value. So basically, for an absentee landlord, the less they take care of their property, the less value it is assessed for, the better better for them. It's less money they have to pay in taxes. So it becomes kind of a reverse incentive for them. They can just kind of wait out the market and wait for other people to invest in their properties and then jump in and take the benefit from all those other folks who have invested in their property. So it's a real problem. It's not unique to Bennington. It's a nationwide problem, and we could certainly continue to look at ways that we could try to encourage the state to give us some more tools to deal with that. But unfortunately, the way that assessment works in Vermont is if you have a property that's not well maintained, you pay less taxes than your neighbor who has a really well maintained property.
Oh, again, I know that there's talk of a vacant building fee and so forth, and I believe the Brattleboro included a sliding scale. The longer it was vacant, the greater the penalties were assessed against that property?
So their ordinance had it so initially, permit would be $1,000 for their first year, and then each year, basically, it would double. But that was it. But that was, again, their permit fee. But a key point is they hadn't collected to date, and if someone challenged that, to enforce that would be a violation of their ordinance, which would go through a notice of violation, a court order to actually get a judgment if someone refused to do it or if someone was in violation of doing it. So that was one aspect. The second aspect of it, and what was touched on, was that permit, by the way their ordinance is written, that permit fee is waived if they are actively marketing that property. But again, that goes to the discussion of was that active marketing. So, if they had we just don't know enough at this point. There hasn't been a challenge in Brattleboro to see how that plays out, but that's how their ordinance is structured.
And I would just add to that, part of what was exciting about that article was it went up to $10,000 and then would go up beyond that. But keep in mind, we could assess that fine, but then it's up to a judge to agree with that. So a judge could take a look at a situation, say, yes, I see you've got $10,000 in permit fees that you've not paid, and but the person makes a compelling argument, judge, I did everything I could, it's just the market, whatever it is, and the judge can be sympathetic to them and award the town $5, $100, or nothing. There's no guarantee if we put that large number on there that we would ever get it.
It just seems to me, sadly, that back row of legislators is now gone. So from what I'm hearing is pretty much the ball is in Montpelier's court and maybe even Washington, D.C.'s court if we got all these federal alphabet agencies controlling mortgages and property ownership.
It's challenging.
Maybe we can ask them to come back.
Yeah. Ed, you got anything? Any other follow-ups? I have a thought.
Excuse me, I have one indulgence here.
Yeah, go over to the microphone and then we'll.
I think we might be looking at this, you guys just brought it up to me, we're looking at this maybe backwards. Maybe instead of looking at all the fines and everything else, and like you just said, all of the judges would say, no. Why don't we invest in ourselves to put something downtown that will make that property more marketable, valuable, and whatever, as you all proved with the skateboard park. If you build it, it will get utilized. Now, it doesn't all have to be on the select board or the new town manager, but we could have discussions now until next spring to see if there's something that we could put in our downtown and ask the voters to approve it, and then maybe do it. Then, if it's successful, of the idea, then those properties would raise themselves in market value, and people would want to open a business near it. As you see when you do all of the Mayfest or the food thing that Sarah does and everything else, people know Bennington's here, and people want to come to it. So what if we come up with something that we could put in our downtown, ask the voters to approve it if it's going to cost, but maybe it would market our properties where people would say, I want to open my store in downtown Bennington. That's what I'm thinking. And I know you're going to think I'm nuts, but I've seen when you watch TV and all these other places, London and everything else, I'm just going to use this for an example, I'm not promoting it, but a Ferris wheel, say, okay? And you had a Ferris wheel, and we did it, ran it, not ran it, but rented it out to somebody to run it to make money. If we did something like that, as Walmart, Dan and I fought that years ago, that when Walmart got bigger, it made North Side Drive more valuable for other businesses to come in, the property values went up. And the good news, maybe, and down the road, is the Pownell track is going to go up for auction, okay? Maybe somebody will buy that and make that into an entity that wants to bring something to southern Vermont. But what we could do ourselves is ask the voters, if we come up with an idea, or ask the voters for an idea, what would you like to see downtown that wouldn't cost us $20,000 million? but something we could do for ourselves. It's about time we stop looking for excuses and start putting ideas out there. And
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, and I couldn't agree more about the value and importance in investing in our own community. And to your point about downtown, thank you for promoting next Wednesday's listening session about ideas for the downtown in Bennington. So I'm sure we'll mention that in upcoming meetings. One question, or one thought I had, you've presented the case that demonstrates how complex this is and how difficult it is, and is looking to the board for direction. I'm thinking it would be helpful, at least for me, and I think for the board, if the staff could put together like a menu of options for the board to consider, and I wouldn't angle them more or less toward the questions of addressing neighborhood blight or economic development. I have to say, from my perspective, they're equally important concerns. But I'd like to at least have some, down on a piece of paper in front of me. These are 10 things you can do, and these are 10 other things you can do, and then we can have maybe a really thoughtful discussion at the board level about that.
One question for you is, a lot of the conversation has been focused on downtown. Similarly, would you like us to focus those recommendations on the downtown improvement district or town-wide?
Sarah?
I'd like to see what the lowest hanging fruit for you to go at is, the easiest to go at. I think some of these, to me, this is, you know what you know. I don't know what. So what's the easiest for you to go at?
Well, one is just the scope of work. If you're wanting something to be done with the same amount of resources and personnel that we have right now, a smaller geographical area would be easier to manage and perhaps could be a test case.
Okay, I think the easiest and lowest hanging fruit, maybe some of that stuff. And then the longer term stuff, kind of put that out there and see just kind of that direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, recognize that we also are a little short-staffed right at the moment. So I would agree that that's a good idea. From my perspective, as far as where, we've had vacant properties in my neighborhood, and while I'm very concerned about the downtown and economic development, when you have it in your backyard, it's a big issue. So I wouldn't say that I favor one area over the other in the long term. I recognize that we have to focus a little bit to start, but Jackie?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And I think a list like that would be really helpful. I think any ideas that sort of come off of that list, there's going to be pros and cons. I wonder if there's interest for maybe a smaller group of this board to take that set of ideas on board and kind of workshop it and sort of evaluate those ideas a little more in depth and then bring something really substantial here.
I think that makes sense, Jackie. And I was, as the discussion was going along, I said, well, the economic development discussion, certainly that's something that the Clark's Economic Development Committee might want to take on as a charge.
Right, I agree with you. I was thinking while we spoke, the housing, economic development part, and if there are vacant housing units or buildings capable of being turned into housing units, maybe that might be a focus. What we're looking at too is how we can convert those over to viable housing units. Even if it doesn't bring business, it's going to bring jobs. Somebody's got to do the work.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions from the board?
If this list comes to fruition, maybe staff time and cost, since we are pretty limited, if that's a feasibility on that.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, staff time and cost, since we are pretty limited on those, if that's a possibility.
I think we'll have to look at, timeframes and parameters, but, stuff that obviously we'll have discussion with Dan to figure out what timelines might realistically look like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nancy?
I know you want to try to limit it, but I'd hope something could be looked at townwide, maybe not in depth, but downtown has been the focus in Bennington for over 30 years. The Putnam Block is there. That should be drawing a lot of things too. So to continue just being downtown, I'd like to see something in addition to that, not at the full depth that you're going to look at the downtown, but something townwide. Maybe we can address that too.
Thank you. So, something to assign to the new assistant town manager, Dan.
So yeah, we'll put together some opportunities, some options for folks to look at. Would you like us, before that happens, to do a active outreach to stakeholders, or would you like us to bring those options to you and then have reactions from stakeholders at that time? It's obviously a different process.
Who are the stakeholders?
Well, there's the BBC, there's the property owners themselves, there's real estate agents, there's finance companies, there's all sorts of folks that play a role in this issue. And we could certainly reach out to those folks and have conversations with them, but it obviously would extend the process.
From my perspective, I think it would be helpful to get at least some level of input from them, because that would help us evaluate the viability of the different options. So,
I agree with that.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for your work, continuing work on a challenge in the community. Thank you.
If I could just make one last point, though, Jim, just to Sarah's point. Sure. Just similar to this, but within our office, for inspections, as of Friday, our office has done 674 total inspections since January 1st, focused mainly on fire, life safety, or complaints on properties. So just gives you a scale of what we're doing, and that's a fraction, though, of what the total things are within the town of Bennington. So just want to point that out.
So what would you recommend people do about their fire alarms right now?
I mean, the most important thing for any homeowner, we'll put out another release. We did one after the after the the other residential fire before that. Sorry, blanking out. The most important thing is being alerted and being able to get out of your homes. Fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. Fires burn faster, hotter, quicker in today's homes with all the new materials, furniture, and everything else. The most important things you can do is make sure smoke alarms are working to get you awake, and then make sure you know if your primary exit is blocked, what are your other exits out of your house, to include windows, and make sure they're working. So that's what I would recommend to people. Thank you.
Thank you. After seeing that fire the other day, that's I think that's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is water systems reimbursable loan applications.
Yes,
Mr. Monks.
So I'm glad that Jason and his crew was here last time, I think, to talk about this issue. So I'm hopeful that the board appreciates what these loans will cover, but I'll try to summarize them again. And MSK did, I think, do a very good job of summarizing them in their cover memo to you folks in the packet. But it's essentially two loan applications. They're both fully reimbursable, which means 100% of these funds will be paid back to the town. We just have to show we've expended them, and then the state reimburses us. So this has no impact on the local taxpayer. But there are two loans for two different projects. One of them is a construction project. One of them is a feasibility project. The construction project is nicknamed the Monument Avenue Extension Loan. However, it has to do with other locations like Hickory Hill and the South Shire neighborhood as well. And this would partially fund the necessary infrastructure to bring water service, public water service to that area of town to address the PFAS contamination. It's a $5 million loan. We know that the cost, as Jason mentioned last time, is probably $7 million. We may be able to get some cost savings from the South End project, so to speak, where we have some money bonded already. We have not accessed those funds yet. So we're going to work really hard to get as much as we can done with that $5 million, but it may not do the entire project. So that's to be determined, but obviously we want to get the $5 million, lock the $5 million down as soon as we can. The other project the other loan is for a feasibility project, and that's essentially to look into the possibility of town water service along the Middle Pownell Road and the lower East Road portions of town and into Shasberry. Again, this is simply a feasibility study. It does not commit the town to do any work, but the state has requested that we do this feasibility study so we can try to serve our residents and possibly some residents in Shasberry. As you know, all of that was discussed when Jason Dolmich was here from MSK. Nothing has changed, and I would just, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but also the request is that you folks make a motion to sign these applications for reimbursable funds from the state revolving loan program, and I would, if that does happen, I'll pass around the originals. Oddly, as you folks probably see often, there are only 5 places to sign. I've added 2 more. Most places in the state of Vermont have a 5-member select board. We have the luxury of 7 members. So if it looks a little odd having some additional places to sign, that is why, because their standard format does not take into account our unique select board system. So, but any questions you have, I'd be happy to try to answer. Hopefully Jason was pretty thorough in his presentation last time.
Yeah. For the purpose of discussion, I move that we sign the loan applications.
Thanks, Jackie. Is there a second? Clark? Okay, discussion, board? I think so, Nancy.
So we already have one of these loans that we did, was it early this year, that's going to be forgiven?
So we've taken advantage of this program multiple times. I cannot tell you how many times, but we have.
Tied to this project, though.
Yes, so in order to design this system for the Monument Avenue extension construction, we had to do design and feasibility work, and we did take advantage of state funding for that as well. We haven't had to expend, to date, local funds on this impact from the PFAS contamination. Looking forward, obviously, we're going to have some challenges as the state attempts to hold St. Gobain responsible, but that's where we are right
And
now.
the Monument Avenue infrastructure, when we talked at that last time, were we looking at a $3 million bond?
I don't recall the exact amount for that South End project, but I certainly can find that for you, Nancy.
And there's no money left from the law firm where a lot of us were able to get settlements? Even though there's none of that money's left?
Not for additional infrastructure, no. No. That was a private settlement. The town did not receive funding from that.
And how many people, non-Bennington residents, would you be looking at? Is it just Shasberry, not Pownell?
My understanding is just Shasberry. There may be a portion, but again, this is just to look at the feasibility of our system being able to offer them water. It's not a commitment, and we certainly would have lots of things to work out if that were to become the way forward.
But that might be an additional bond too.
Well, that we're hopeful. We are very hopeful that there will be additional state funds, federal funds, and also ultimately St. Gobain steps up and pays for the damage that they've done. But as we may talk a little bit later, St. Gobain has so far denied responsibility. The state feels pretty confident based on their scientific analysis that St. Gobain is responsible, but we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company that can certainly drag this out for a long time.
And would you have any idea when we'd be hearing from the expert, I don't know who the company was, that's looking at the filters of the wastewater treatment plants? We'd know what we're looking at for that bond?
I don't, but we can certainly have Larry Gates give us some information, update on that. I know that he's working with Aldrich and Elliott on that design.
Okay.
Thank you. And you're right, that is going to be a cost coming up in the next several years.
I'm just trying to keep track of the bonds here.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we have all that in front of you for budget time, both at the general fund, highway budgets, as well as the water and sewer budgets.
Thank you. There any other questions or comments from the board on this? Yeah, Clark.
Dan, you mentioned a feasibility study that might include elements of Shaftesbury. Have you been in contact with those folks as to their position on joining in on this? Or?
Yeah, so actually, several months ago, we had a couple representatives from Shaftesbury approach us. I guess the state had told them that they felt the only way to address their concerns with a public water source was through the town of Bennington water source, because the North Bennington water source they did not believe was even worth studying from a feasibility standpoint. So it was representatives from the town of Shaftesbury who urged us to allow the state to offer this loan, reimbursable loan, so that we could study to see if it would even be feasible.
Do they come to us with empty hands? Or
well, I mean,
will they participate in the financial burden associated with this project?
So that's so as we move forward, if it's St. Cobain or federal money or state money, you know, obviously that's a moot issue. If it's that they want us to extend the infrastructure into their town, I would advise and assume that would be a Shaftesbury cost, and then they would obviously pay for their use of those of that water, as well as any maintenance costs within their municipality. This happens very often in municipalities where one municipality will sell water to another municipality under, you know, inter-municipal agreements where it's worked out who's responsible for what and what the costs are, et cetera. You know, we're way down the road. You know, it may not even be feasible, so it may not be an issue, but you know, unfortunately, St. Cobain has wreaked this havoc on us, and we're trying to get clean water to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? No? Okay. We have a motion to approve the agreements as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it looks like that's unanimous, unless I missed somebody. Thank you. So that is taken care of.
So I'm going to pass these around, Jim, and then
very good. Thank you.
Maybe Ed, you can make sure I get them back. Because I'll forget them if you don't remind me.
I'm keeping a pile here. So, okay. The 10th item on this rather full agenda, Community Policing Advisory Review Board appointments. There are 2 vacancies on the so-called CPARB, and we had applicants, and the Select Board interviewed them recently, and I would be willing to entertain a motion regarding appointments to the Community Police Advisory Review Board.
I make a motion that we accept the 2 candidates that we've interviewed for filling these vacancies.
Thank you. And for the record, those applicants are?
Lenny DePont DeSorda and Scott Richmond.
So is there a second to Clark's motion?
Second.
Second from Sarah. Discussion by the board. No. Seeing none, then I will entertain a vote at this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? 1 abstention, 5 in favor. Those 2 appointments have been made, and we'll
congratulations
follow through on those. Yes, thank you, and thank you to them for their interest in serving the town.
No, we are fully staffed now on the CPARB, so we will begin our we'll work with the PD and Kate to work on get the training going. So.
Thank you. Manager's report, Dan.
Okay, I only have 1 action item this evening. It's a request to close Main Street and Gage Street. It's a request from United Counseling Service for their 5K and Kids Dash, Superhero 5K and Kids Dash. The request is to close those streets beginning at about 9 a.m. on November 8th, 2025. They have met with the chief. I have had discussions with the chief. He's comfortable with the communications to date, and we'll work with UCS to make sure this is successful. I don't have a specific end time because we don't know exactly when the last racer may be coming over the finish line, but obviously we're not going to keep the road closed completely for a few folks, but we'll make sure that they're safe and get through the race. So it will start about 9 o'clock, and I'm guessing for a couple hours we'll be at least partially closed on that route. This is not the first time they've done this, so they do have a pretty good team in place to work to make sure this is a safe and successful event. And again, I feel comfortable that the chief of police is satisfied with the efforts, communication efforts and coordination to date. So I would look for a motion to close Main Street and Gage Street as in accordance with the request from UCS.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second for discussion.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion from the board?
I have a question. What are the costs associated for UCS for this event? The police department?
I don't know the exact cost, but they will have to pay for police coverage. And
Do you know how many hours?
Again, it's probably about 2 officers, maybe total of 5 hours combined.
Okay.
But again, I'm just guessing.
Sure.
But that's something that they have to work out with the chief.
Just like to get an idea of how much different associations are having to pay for each event.
Yeah.
I know it adds up. Okay, thank you.
And as you know, we're extremely short-staffed at the PD, so it's important that we make sure that those folks get paid for doing their overtime.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this street closing question? Oh, Nancy.
On the informational, or we'll vote on this and then I get a couple questions on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's vote first.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? No, that one passed.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan, you
closure is
have
approved.
more?
Thank you.
More information from the manager's report?
Okay, I'm not going to hit everything. You guys have seen the report, but we had 3 weeks between the last select board meeting, so it's a little longer manager's report than usual. But work continues on the Ninja Path. If you want to go check out the new bridge, it's in. It isn't quite connected to the boardwalk approaches yet, but I've been told that will be done by Wednesday. So if you're really careful and wear a hard hat and a vest, you might be able to cross the bridge after Wednesday. And they do expect, they're feeling pretty good about completing the vast majority of the work this fall. They may have to, like I said, they may have to come back in spring to do some cleanup stuff, but they really hope to have that project wrapped up this fall. I just talked to Representative Corcoran this evening, and he's working hard for us to convince the folks up in Montpelier to approve our force account request, and that has been submitted to VTrans, and we've submitted additional information to them, so we're very hopeful that that force account work will be approved, and as you know, that would definitely help us to get this project done at a significantly lower cost to the taxpayers. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that. The Maplewood subdivision, Duffy Drive, Jane Lane, Hilder Hill, it has been paved, at least the first course has been put on, and some sections have the second course. I expect that by the middle of the week, that will be completely paved. That the Maplewood folks did pay for that paving, and the only thing left there is for them to produce a deed that is acceptable to our attorney, dedicating that highway to us, and then they'll be our roads, and we'll be taking care of them. And I know folks are happy about that up in the Maplewood subdivision. Just want to reiterate town plan hearings at select board meetings on October 27th and November 10th. And Jonah mentioned the community survey. One other thing that may be coming up that folks may see us working on if we get approval within the next couple of weeks is we do have a sediment management plan for the Roaring Branch to remove sediment that it collects at the bridges. The 2 bridges that it seems to collect at the most are Park Street and Brooklyn Bridge. Brooklyn Bridge was cleaned up, I think, about 1.5 years ago, but Park Street has started to build up again, and we have our river scientist and engineer, Roy Schiff, working to get the state to approve another cleanup this fall pursuant to our sediment management plan. So if you see people working in the river, our crews working in the river, they're doing that under a specific approval from the state, and that sediment will be removed and then crushed up at the transfer station and used for gravel. It's really good material, so it's another way we can save some money by crushing that stuff. And then actually something Clark brought to my attention a few weeks ago, and I know this is not just Clark, other folks have brought this to my attention, but most recently Clark, the crossing at the former Tasty Freeze. Now, the freeze has always been problematic. I did go by today to confirm that the DPW has installed new pedestrian crossing beacons there, which are pretty effective. They're rapidly flashing rectangular beacons. So that's what they call them, and they're very effective. We actually recycled these from the Silk Road roundabout project because we had those beacons there, and when the state did that project, they asked us if we would be willing to take them, and we happily took them and put them in what we consider one of the important crossings in town that needs some additional safety measures. So that's what I have for informational. I didn't know, Nancy, you said you might have some questions. I did also want to follow up on the PFAS discussion.
Just the Park Street Bridge?
Yes.
I don't have any idea how big of a job that is. Did they do it in a couple of days? Has that been budgeted to get done this fall?
So it's not a high-cost item for us because we use our own labor and equipment. So there is some cost, obviously, but we would be working on other projects anyway. So there's fuel costs and those sorts of things. But it's one of those projects that we like to do when our budget's pretty lean because it doesn't cost us a lot of money. But at the same time, it is important because it's gotten too close to the location. We have 3 lines, kind of don't worry if the sediment is here, caution if it's at the second line, and then better get working when it hits the 3rd line. And we're close to the 3rd line in between the 2nd and 3rd, and our river engineer has recommended that we do some work there if we can this year. It could wait a year, probably, but RJ's got time and crews ready to do it this year, and he'd like to get it done. So we're going to try to push to get it done this year, but it may be not till next year.
To the backtrack, the town plan hearings. I just want to stress to folks out there and folks who have spoken to me in the past about town plans that we're doing it by the numbers, folks. Everything, there should be no questions about the appropriateness or the validity of this town plan. There's no wiggle room. We've done everything by the numbers, and I want to thank town staff and our BCRC compatriots for the good work they've done with that, and of course the community's involvement. And also going back to almost one of my pet projects, the crossing at the freeze. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, DPW, although I always park right in front of it. I'm too chicken to try to cross that street.
So yes, thank you for that. And Clark, we do plan to, we have talked to Andrea, the owner, and we're working with her to make a more seamless connection to the rail trail from their property to a crossing. But there may be some design changes, so that's probably in the next couple of years. But she's been very amenable and actually looking forward to us working with us on that. So we hope to make that work for them too.
Great. Yeah, Nancy.
Just one last question. Sure. Shannon's not here, so I'll ask you.
Sure.
Where she's talking about starting to work on plans for the bathroom at the skateboard park.
Yes.
With Daley's, I'd like to have her come in at the next meeting so we can get an idea of what's being proposed.
I'm happy to have her come in a meeting. I don't know if the next meeting makes sense because we're just kind of in the infancy of it, and Mark is out for a while. So, but yes, before we make any plans that are solid or make any decisions about what we're going to do, obviously the board's going to have to be involved. It's town property, and we would want to ensure that you folks are approving of the project.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page before they get...
Oh, absolutely. Before we order it, design it, finish designing,
not even get that far, though. I mean, just to hear what she's proposing. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. And that's a good segue into upcoming agenda. So Dan mentioned the town plan hearings at the next 2 select board meetings, right? And regular select board meetings, because I'd also like to reiterate my note on the special select board meeting listening session next Wednesday, the 22nd, at this location at 6 p.m., I believe. And the general topic of discussion is about downtown, so we'll have a brief presentation on downtown, and then we'd really love to hear people's comments, concerns, issues, and especially ideas for what can happen to this uniquely important part of our community. So that's my plug for that one. Other agenda items?
One thing I hope to have in front of you, I hope to have it today, actually, but our purchaser wasn't ready, is the Morgan Springs contract for the sale of water there. The Primo Waters was our previous purchaser. Their contract actually ends the end of October, and it does look like the new purchaser may be able to just step into their shoes at a better rate. But we're still negotiating that, and we'll hope to have that in front of you at the next meeting. I do believe, given that that meeting is going to be dedicated to a town plan hearing, that we may want to keep that agenda a little lean other than that town plan hearing. But I think that contract shouldn't take too long, and we'll have a presentation from BCRC for the town plan. So,
Thank you. Other agenda issues, Clark?
I know it's a broken record, the dog ordinance, is that going to be ready for us to take a look at and discuss in the coming time?
so that's something that Tom's been working on, right, Jim?
Tom has been. He and I met with folks from the police department and talked about what some of the options are. And I'm not sure how far that's advanced, but we'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else on agenda? Okay.
Yep.
Nancy's got one more thing.
Two things.
Two more
I went to the meeting at the senior center where the Y was talking about what they're doing at the former Catamount School, and I think it'd be beneficial for everybody to have it on our agenda. Some of the things have to be clarified, and I just think, the meeting was only half an hour. They had a class starting. There were still questions left. I'd like to get the contract we currently have between the town and the owner of Catamount. I'd like to know if they have heat in the gym. But I think we should really need to have a public discussion about this.
Okay, thank you. Great. Now, let's just go through any other business that people have. Nancy? Anything else?
Big agenda item I've been trying to get on the agenda since before I got on the board. We have to have a discussion about homelessness in the town of Bennington.
I agree. Thank you. We will make
But
note
can
of
we
that.
get any type of a commitment? Can we do that before the end of the year?
Let's think about that, and I'll talk with Tom about it, because I think we need to have some people in here to present some background information, some factual information on the situation, and then we can have a proper discussion. But yeah, we can certainly try to move that one up. Yeah.
I'd hope to get it on our session, but, Brattleboro and Burlington, combination of issues because they didn't address the issues for many years.
Yeah, thank you. I noted, and I agree, it's a very important topic. Any other business? Sarah? Nothing. So the only thing I have, next, so as Dan mentioned, that the bridge on the Ninja section of the Williamsack Valley Path is almost completely installed. I went down and visited today and talked with the construction crew. They're very nice. Had a little bit of a tour, and it certainly is impressive, and it's going to make a great connection. That until you've walked or ridden your bike along that route, you didn't realize how badly it's needed. So it's when that's done, it's not quite done, but when it's done, it's worth a visit. And people rightly have raised the issue about safety and helmet use at the skate park. And I just want to say, as a bicyclist myself, I'm often concerned about people riding their bicycles on roads, including our town roads, which are as much of a municipal facility as the skate park, without helmets. So I hope that people will take the concern that's been expressed about safety at the skate park and apply that to bicycling on our roads as well. Go ahead.
Nothing tonight.
Clark?
Hi, skate park seems to be popular tonight. It's been brought to my attention, the southwestern corner, kind of in the shadow of everything the trees are, has become a gathering spot for chronic inebriants and rowdyism. I don't know if we could maybe readjust the security cameras to highlight that area.
So our security cameras do capture that area, and the police are aware of the issue, and I've talked to the chief. I did know that you've had some concerns about that, and the chief is aware that you may reach out to him, chat with him about it. So it is something we're addressing, and it is our experience is it's young people doing things that young people do and perhaps shouldn't, but it's something we want to keep an eye on for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed, anything?
I have a couple of things. I just want to mention chronic inebriance is a new term that I wrote down that I'm probably going to get to use more than once in my life, so thank you for that. Two things. One is this weekend is Harvest Fest for those of you that pay attention to the calendar. And as a board member, we get the pleas from the organization that's organizing it, so that's the BBC. They're still very actively recruiting for volunteers for the weekend and the setup and all that. So reach out to the BBC if you have any interest there. And then I know that we've discussed this before, but I'm wondering if anybody else on this board or the town knows of anything that we can do to empower property owners around the Ninja Trail to clean it up. The Ninja Path that goes through the Walmart property is the most disgraceful thing. There's household garbage bins overflowing, and they've been there for weeks, so it's the same household garbage bins. Encampments, I know that we talk about that a lot, but I'm so surprised that we see that on private property that has been opened to the public for its use.
So that's a great point, Ed, and Paul's not here, but he could speak to our efforts with the Walmart folks, and we have been in regular contact with them, and we intend to begin an enforcement action because we're not satisfied with the efforts that have been made to date. We did have a great cooperation with them when we removed some folks who were camped out behind the Walmart building, and that's been cleaned up, and we're very satisfied with that collaboration effort. But as far as cleaning up their property along that trail and along the parking lot, that we have not seen the action that we were promised. So I think our patience is now past, and we will be continuing with the enforcement action. Hopefully that will get their attention, and they'll clean it up and keep it clean.
Yeah, and I agree with the observation. I would only note that has been an issue around the periphery of that Walmart property. Whether or not it has anything to do with the presence of the Ninja Path is another matter.
No, it has nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with that. No.
I think it's there, and it's a problem whether there was a path there or not.
Most of it blows off of the parking lot, or for whatever reason, the Walmart folks allow people to stay there in their RVs for days at a time, and that causes problems, and our PD tries to keep moving them along. So it's been a chronic issue, and like I said, we're to the point now where we've tried to be cooperative and collaborative, and they've been mostly responsive, but they're just not appreciating that we need to make it continue to be cleaned up and stay that way. So we're working with them, but we will be beginning an enforcement action.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's anything else under other business from anyone? Otherwise, I would say that completes agenda item 13, and agenda item 14 is an executive session to discuss personnel matters. So I would entertain a motion to go.
Can I interrupt, Jim? And I know that we had a conversation with the chair today, and I didn't know if it was appropriate. We could certainly wait till the next meeting, but I didn't know if you wanted to also bring up the contract issue that we discussed today, or would it be better for Tom to be present for that?
Yeah, there is a contract issue to be discussed in executive session as well.
Well, we could certainly wait until next week, but next meeting.
I think probably it'd be good to put that one off.
Okay. We'll just put it on the next agenda.
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. Then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter.
I would move that after a brief recess so that I can run to the ladies' room.
It's been a long,
That we
day.
move to
We've been
executive
here,
session.
we've been here since 5, so understood. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are in recess until our executive session after the bathroom break. So.